Whenever you approach Sunnis that claim that hadith is a second revelation from God that was brought down to Prophet Muhammad and that the hadith explains the Quran, whenever you present to them any information from the hadith that kind of contradicts their position, it's like a deer stuck in some car's headlight. It's as if they've never seen that information before. Because the truth is, they haven't seen that information before. Most Sunnis, even the ones that are learned, they're like Christians. They just never read the book. A lot of Christians don't read the Bible, yet they believe in it. And when they're confronted about what they believe in and they're presented with some verses of the Bible, it's as if they've seen it for the first time in their lives and they're confused, so they don't have an answer. So they usually try to waffle or give you an explanation from their own whims and desires that doesn't align with the textbook. Now, for people that claim that they are very well versed in the religion and they are teachers and some of them are students of knowledge, when we do approach them with issues with the hadith, they usually turn the conversation around that you are the ignorant person, that you don't know what you're talking about, and that you're a liar. But they just time after time show that they actually have never read these books that they believe in. Yes, they've spent time with the Quran, and yes, they've heard some of the few hadiths that get repeated often, and that's the only thing they know. But they've never dove into these books and read them from cover to cover. I'm not saying that I read them cover to cover, but I read enough of them to understand what they're saying so that I could fight them with their own book. Just like how they go to Christians and they fight them with the Bible, I use the hadith to show them some of the contradictions that they say. But again, every time you present to them these books, they just quickly shy away from the conversation. And the way they do it is a very terrible style. Now, there is a movement called the Salafi movement. That is a movement that rose in the Sunnism sect of Islam that started in about 19th century, which was supposed to rejuvenate the trust and way of the religion in Sunnism because it obviously went off course. But the problem is this sect of people are usually very extreme in their worldview, and they are just going by what they believe that their favorite sheikh is saying, and they're very clear cut in what they believe in, despite if it just doesn't align with logic, reason, or the Quran, or what any other proof has been brought forth to them. So they're extremists in a sense where there is no conversation, there is no dialogue for us to have whether who's right or what the truth is, because they just talk at you. And if you don't agree with their stance, or if you don't agree with what they're trying to present to you, they just quickly label you as names as Rafidah, someone who's like rejecting a certain thing of the sect of the religion, or a Khariji, or someone who's like invoking protest against it's like you invoking protest against whoever the Muslim leader at the time is, or a murtad, an apostate, or all sorts of other names that they like to label you with. But the bottom line is, to them in their creed, you are worthy of going to hell, and that you are worthy to be put to death because you have rejected the religion of the Prophet, right? The religion that God has bestowed upon humanity, which is supposed to be universal, but to them it's not. Now, the problem with the hadith, and this is one very key element to why we do not accept the hadith, is because there are many hadith that either point blank tell you that there's a verse in the Quran that is missing, but you will find it here in these books, or that this verse is kind of missing, we kind of apply it, but it's just alluding that the Quran is incomplete. Now, whenever we present this information to this so-called Salafiyya movement, they're quickly to turn the thing around that you don't know Arabic, or the way you read Arabic is not good enough, or that you're not a scholar and you have no certification, or you have no authority to speak about the subject. And if you're going to carry on, then you are an infidel, you're a kafir. So it's very difficult to have these conversations. Once in a while, we get into a debate with them, which they're not allowed to really debate unless if they're a black belt in their cult, right? But usually you get these like white belts once in a while that want to show how pious they are and how righteous they are. But when it comes down to how they perform in these debates, it really shows who they are inside. Now, there was this debate between my good friend Shuaib Abdullahi and against this Salafiyya person on the right. I don't know if he's actually from the Salafiyya movement. He used to align with the movement. He might not now. He probably will say that he does. But this is Sadiq Salis from Maruf Live TV. Now, the issue is Sadiq says that Shu'aiba can't speak Arabic and he has no authority to talk about the Quran, even though Shu'aiba clearly read Arabic in front of him many times in this debate. And Shu'aiba, also from the correctional officer, Baba Shu'aiba, on the left there, he translated the Quran. It took him 6 years, and he did a very good job in translating the word of the Quran to the best he can in English. And if you read the translation, it's worthy of a lot of praise, and praise to God first of all, but it's worthy of praise. And Sadiq just wants to show that Shu'aiba doesn't understand Arabic. But the problem is, whenever we present people like Sadiq things in the hadith, we just show how ignorant they are to their own doctrine, to their own books. That they have no idea what's written in their own books, and they're always caught in the headlight. So I do want to show you parts of this debate. Mind you, this is a 3-hour debate. If you want to watch parts of it in a review by the correctional officer, you can go to Baba Shu'aib's channel. I'll link it at the bottom. And you can check out the debate and parts of the debate. But the thing that I want to highlight is how Sadiq there handles himself when the hadith is presented to him, and to show how much he's of a liar, that he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about when it comes down to his own personal doctrine. Now, mind you, the debate is, does the hadith explain the Quran? Well, Shu'aiba made the point that the Quran is sufficient because the Quran says it's sufficient, and Sadiq is arguing against that the Quran is not sufficient, that the Quran is missing things that the hadith will explain to you, that you on your own cannot understand the Quran, and the hadith is important aspect of the Quran, which in a sense he's arguing against his own holy book, the Quran. But that's a debate for or a discussion for a different time. Now, when the way this thing was presented was that, does the hadith explain the Quran? And in a debate, usually the person who is in the affirmative, he initiates the debate. So he makes his opening remark, and then the other side makes their opening remark, and then the first side does a rebuttal to the opening remark, and then the second side does a rebuttal to the opening remark, and then usually you have open dialogue in regards to the conversation. Now, Sadiq made it a very important aspect to him that he does not want to start first, and he spent about half an hour arguing with Shu'aiba in regards that he doesn't want to start first, and this was something that was done off camera. So Shu'aiba said fine, and one thing that stuck out is that Sadiq said that it's a disadvantage to start first. So he put Shu'aiba at the disadvantage in his mind, but then we've quickly found out that after Shu'aiba made his opening presentation on why the hadith does not explain the Quran, and the Quran explains itself, and God is explaining the Quran, and the Quran is the clarity for everything, the man didn't, like Sadiq didn't present anything as an opening presentation, but rather he just did a rebuttal. He tried to rebuke everything that Shu'aiba said, and then when he was told that this is not how a debate works and that you lost the debate, this was Sadiq's response, and you could see how he handles himself.
Again, it wasn't time for rebuttals, but you were already taking from my presentation and attacking me instead of going with your presentation. So you have failed in the first place.
Don't worry, that is for the audience to judge. It's for those who are listening, they want guidance to judge that, inshallah. So you can start with
now.
Okay, so you could see, like, it doesn't matter that I was a snake. It doesn't matter that I was ingenuine, because he, in his mind, like most extremist groups, that you're going to hell. So it doesn't matter how I treat you. You're worthy to be going to hell. So if I become a snake and disgenuine, they forgot that the whole purpose of religion for you to be a Muslim or a submitter is that you know God is just and fair and wise, and he is not an unjust God, and he is not an unfair God. And that on the day of judgment, everything's going to be brought forth, and whatever statements of oppression that was made by Shu'aiba, it will be used against him, and whatever oppressive tactics that Sadiq uses will be used against him. But in Sadiq's mind, it doesn't matter, because he, in his mind, thinks he's representing the way of the Prophet and the Salaf, the 3 generations after Prophet Muhammad, which they, in their mind, they think they're all like infallible as long as they were believers. So it doesn't matter how I act and what I do in things that are completely incorrect. We came to play chess, but I'm going to pull up some checker pieces and I'm going to jump over your pieces and say that I won and that you're a liar. But regardless, Shu'aiba was able to pin him to a few things in regards to the hadith. There's a hadith that I'm putting right in front of you here where, and this is what we present to them. is these verses or these hadith that say that the Quran is missing, that there are verses that are recited but they're not in the Quran and we can't find them in the Quran, therefore the Quran is incomplete, therefore the Quran is not preserved as per the hadith. Of course they cannot point blank say yes, of course the Quran is incomplete, because that will go against their own doctrine. But this narration, which is an authentic narration from Sahih Muslim 3597, among the things that were revealed of the Quran was 10 definite breastfeeding make a person a mahram. Notice how the translator here, who is Muhsin Khan, who is a Sunni by the way, he didn't translate the word mahram. Then, and he kept going, he said that 10 definite breastfeeding make a person a mahram. Then that was abrogated and replaced with 5 definite breastfeedings, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away when this was among the things that were recited of the Quran. Nowhere in the Quran is there a verse that states that 5 definite breastfeeding or the number 5 in breastfeedings are together in a single verse. So for them, they usually go pick a different verse and then they start to like twist the meaning, saying, you see, it is in the Quran, but it's clearly saying here, it was 10, now it's 5, so now you should see 5 definite breastfeedings in the Quran. We don't. So when we present this information, and Shu'aiba's question is, why is this not in the Quran? Now, Shu'aiba did say something at the beginning before he presented this, and this is what Shu'aiba said in regards to which hadith he wants to show.
The hadith from Sahih Muslim. Your hadith allows the breastfeeding of adults.
So he said the breastfeeding of adults, right? Here the word mahram was used. Now, what does this ignorant person that doesn't know his own doctrine, he doesn't realize that there is a big debate about adult breastfeeding, where yes, the majority of the scholars say it's not acceptable, but people still use this hadith and another hadith to say that adult breastfeeding is part of, that it's legal for you. And adult breastfeeding is literally like an old man. He can go suckle on some girl's boobies that he's not married to, and now she becomes a mahram, which is someone who they're not legal to marry, but they can hang around with like she's their mother now, right? Yes, it is that weird, but that is an ongoing debate within Sunnism. But this guy now wants to talk about what the word mahram, because Shu'aiba said adult breastfeeding.
So guys, I just want this to be clear to everyone. He said that the hadith says that feeding of grown-up men has been abrogated. I'm asking him, where in the text is it said that feeding of grown-up men? Where is it?
Because in the Arabic, it did not specify grown or young, right? But the word mahram covers young and old. Especially in this hadith, people understand that it's got to do with adult breastfeeding, if that's the way that you want to go, if you accept that.
Where in the text that is?
Where in the text? Where in the Arabic text?
Wait. That's why I put the text on the screen. This is your books. Listen carefully. Wait, don't interrupt. This is your books translated by your own scholars. And I put it on the screen for everybody to see. Wait, don't interrupt. Let me explain. Then, if you have understood my question, listen carefully. You put it there, so it's clearly obvious to the audience that your people are translating books to deviate people.
You just lied. There's nothing like that in the Arabic. You are lying.
Check.
Okay,
tell us what it means. Did you tell us what it means?
So the hadith is saying that she said,
remember, Shu'aiba's question was, we can't find this in the Quran. This man wants to go, oh no, you lied. It has nothing to do with adult people, right? But he unfortunately doesn't understand how his own creed works and what people have been going through in his own creed. I'm not going to go into big amount of information from them. I'll just show you point blank, because if Shu'aiba lied, then the people who wrote this article, which is done by Muslims on Wikipedia about adult suckling, the following tradition hadith treats both this topic as well as that rida al-kabir, which is Arabic, or suckling of an adult or breastfeeding of an adult, and the numbering of suckling, and they literally use the exact same hadith that Baba Shu'aiba brought forth, right? It says, in what was revealed of the Quran, 10 attested breastfeedings were mentioned as required to establish the marriage ban, which is muhram. The 10 were replaced by a mention of 5 attested breastfeeding, and the Prophet died and the 5 were still reciting in the Quran. He wants to not talk about the fact that this is not recited in the Quran, that we don't have this in the Quran and the Quran is missing. He wants to talk about that this doesn't include adult suckling, but yet these people still literally used it for adult suckling. And the thing is, yes, most jurists say that this is not true, right? That there is something wrong, and they quickly throw their own hadith under the bus because it just, now people are realizing this doesn't make sense. But mind you, using this hadith, right? There was a person who got in trouble, but the person was from, this is Dr. Atiyah, right? The head of Al-Azhar Department of Hadith. Just so you know, Al-Azhar is the oldest Muslim university that teaches the Sunni sect and Islam in general. They are the oldest university that is still running in Cairo, Egypt, right? And he said that this teaching should equally apply to adults, right? He said that if a woman fed a male colleague directly from her breast, right, at least 5 times, they would establish a family bond and thus be allowed to work alone together at work. Breastfeeding an adult puts an end to the problem of private meeting and does not ban marriage, he ruled. A woman at work can take off her veil or reveal her hair in front of someone who she breastfeeded, right? People gave him an outrage because most of the people don't agree with this, but it's still, as you can see, this is literally the head of Al-Azhar's Department of Hadith. This person would be considered a scholar in Hadith. He used the Hadith literally, and the people said, nope, we can't use this literally, right? And when presented with this information, he quickly wants to run away and say mahram doesn't include adults, right? But then later when he was being asked a question, he tells you how the doctrine works, right? And I'm going to let Siddiq with his own mouth explain to you how the doctrine works.
The Quran and the Hadith is what we call jam'ul ayati fi mawdi' al-wahid, and that's the first thing. For you to bring a hukum from something, a judgment from something, you need to bring the relative verses of the Quran together. For example, zakah. You need to bring all the verses of zakah together so that you'll be able to explain them accordingly. And then also the ahadith of zakah together. So we have something called jam'ul ahadith fi mawdi' al-wahid, and it's the same thing to the Quran. Okay, you don't just pick a Quranic verse and then make issue out of it. Just like the Quraniyun, they do this sect. They call some people sect and they leave themselves.
Okay, so he clearly stated to you how the religion works. If you want to understand a specific term, you need to bring all relevant information from the Quran, in his case, the Quran and the Hadith, and then you could get a picture of what it is, and then you make a judgment. So, okay, so let's go collect everything in regards to what a mahram is and understand if that 10 suckling or 5 sucklings would include adults or not, right? And this is what Shu'aibah did later on. He brought in a hadith, which is 3 hadiths after the one that was being mentioned. So usually they do collect the hadiths that are aligning to the same topic, and they put them together for you to read them and get the big picture very quickly. So the first hadith, if you could see here on the screen, it was 3,597. This is 3,600, 3 hadiths later. And we'll read it together, right? Sahla bin Suhail came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, O Messenger of Allah, I see signs of displeasure on the face of Abu Hudayfa when Salim, who was ally, comes in. And the Prophet said, breastfeed him. She said, how can I breastfeed him? He's a grown man. The Messenger of Allah smiled and said, I know he's a grown man. Just let him go suck on your boobie. Apparently, and of course, we throw this hadith in the garbage where it belongs, because the Prophet will never tell an old lady to have like almost to have sexual relations with a man, or for people to touch them to each other in regards to like the decorations of a woman, which is her breast, right? But apparently he was telling people, and this is an authentic hadith, to like the girl to let her suck on her boobie. Now you see here, it literally says breastfeed him. What the sheikhs try to say, oh, it means that like, you know, she like pours the milk in a cup and then gives him a cup, right? But obviously this is not what it's saying, but they like to play their twists and games. But so what did we do? As Siddiq said, we brought all the information, relevant information, to see what a mahram is, right? And later in this same hadith, it says that makes him a mahram. But as Siddiq wants to say,
from the 3,597, it comes out to 3,600. You see it? So ladies and gentlemen, on the screen, you see it clearly here, put there, that it says the Prophet said, breastfeed him. She said, how can I breastfeed him? He is a grown man. Now, in the context of their hadith books, if you take the hadith chain of narration, they put it into sequence.
Okay, Baba, for the sake of honesty, is it the first hadith you presented, or is the second hadith?
Now, in the same lane, It's in the same lane.
Not same lane, not same lane. I'm not talking about same lane. The hadith you were talking, hadith in Nana Aisha, where we read up to, and you were saying that is where the grown-up man. I'm saying
that hadith. No, wait. The one I quoted is 3,597. Listen.
So let's stick to that. Don't move to a next hadith. Let's stick to that. If you are asking this hadith question on this hadith, then it will be a different question then.
No, I'm not asking a question. No. I'm not asking.
Okay, so use the first one, and that is what I made my comment on. So go back to that one, and if this we will discuss this one later. So because people will understand this to be the first one.
Siddiq, the first one I quoted, it mentioned a person in the translation.
Okay. So let's.
So what I'm saying, wait.
Then this will be a different thing. I thought you
were
going to make comment. I thought you were going to make comment on the. You see, people. This would deceive people to think that. How do you call it? This is the hadith you were using before.
So nobody's thinking that this is the hadith that you were using before, because we could clearly read the old hadith and we can read the new hadith that was put down in front of us. We don't need him to explain to us which is the old and new. But he went against his own doctrine. He said, let's go bring things together so that we could understand, so that we could make the judgment. So we brought things together to show him that the Prophet is telling women to go breastfeed adult people. And now at that point, no. Mahram, right? Mahram, it's only applicable to that hadith there as young people. But here now it's young people and all old people. So he just completely started to go off his own whims and desires. But this is not the only time that he was presented with his own books and then he shows his complete ignorance. So there is another issue where they say that the Caliph Omar, one of the rightly guided caliphs, said that there was a verse in the Quran that is missing, right? And he was too scared to write it into the Quran so that people don't say that he himself was adding to the book of God. And that verse is the one about stoning, that an adult or a married male or female that commit adultery, they get stoned to death, right? And when he's presented with the information again that there is a verse in the Quran that is clearly missing as per your hadith, what does he want to do?
So let me quickly put on back the hadith to expose the ignorance once again. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu did never said there's this verse in the Quran. He said, and I'm reading from the Arabic, خشيت أن يطول بالناس زمان حتى يقول قائل لا نجر الرجم في كتاب الله.
So what did he say at the beginning about Umar?
Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu did never said there's this verse in the Quran. He said.
So unfortunately for him, Omar did say those words. And unfortunately for him, he just shows that he's a liar and he's ignorant. So we're going to go to Sahih Bukhari 6830, which is a few narrations after the one that's on the screen there. And we're going to read together. Omar stood up and having glorified and praised Allah as he deserved, he said, "Now then, I am going to tell you something which Allah has written for me to say. I do not know. Perhaps it portends my death. So whoever understands it and remembers it must narrate it to the others wherever his mount takes him. But if somebody is afraid that he does not understand it, then it is unlawful for him to tell lies about me. Allah sent Muhammad with the truth and revealed the holy book to him, and among what Allah revealed was the verse of the rajm." So Umar is saying, and among what Allah has revealed in the holy book that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad was the verse of the rajm, the stoning of married person, male and female, who commits illegal sexual intercourse. And we did recite this verse and understood it and memorized it. And Allah's messengers, alayhi salawatu wasalam, did carry out the punishment of stoning, and so did we after him. And then he goes, which Siddiq is reading from the other narration, which these narrations now overlap. "I am afraid that after a long time has passed, somebody will say, by Allah, we did not find the verse of the rajm in Allah's book, and thus they will go astray by leaving an obligation which Allah has revealed, and the punishment of the rajm is to be inflicted to any married person, male and female, who commits illegal sexual intercourse, if the required evidence is available or there is conception or confession," right? And then we use, not only there, Omar goes on by saying that not only one verse is missing, but there's two verses missing of the Quran. But we can't talk about this with Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah because they run away. They're saying the Quran is complete, but the Hadith kind of says it's not. And then we used to recite among the verses in Allah's book, and this verse is also missing from the Quran, "O people, do not claim to be the offspring of other than your fathers, as it is disbelief. On your part that you claim to be the offspring of other than your real fathers." Right? And then thing carries on. But when Siddiq is told that Omar said that the verse is missing, Omar apparently didn't, because he just goes by his whims and desires.
Said
Omar did say
there's this verse in the Quran. He said, and I'm reading from the Arabic, خشيت أن يطول بالناس زمان حتى يقول قائل لا نجر الرجم في كتاب الله. He said that I'm scared for a generation to come that someone, they'll be roaming around saying that rajm that you are doing, meaning stoning to death, we never found that in the Quran. Rajm means stoning. That we never found that in the Quran. And therefore, since we never find that, therefore that should be rejected. And this is in the accordance of another hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So now he's the hadith scholars, and he's going to take multiple hadiths and link them together to give you the explanation on what Omar meant. When every not even white belts in his creed understand what Omar meant, is that Omar was afraid that people are going to say that this isn't part of God's book, but it is in God's book. And there's another hadith saying that Omar was scared to write it in God's book, so that people don't say that Omar altered God's book. But he himself now wants to go attach a different verse so that it gets turned against us. When he's the ignorant person that doesn't know what his own caliph said in his own books, which again, every white belt in his position should know.
Will come when some people will claim that ما وجدتم في القرآن حلالا فحلوه وما وجدتم حراما فحرموه. Anything you find, a time will come when people will say that stick to the Quran alone. Whatever you find in the Quran as haram, make it haram. Whatever you find as halal, make it halal. This is what the hadith, and the hadith says that some people will come. So this hadith is an evidence against you and not for you. The hadith is saying that this is the time that will come, that people will say that because we did not find this in the Quran, we did not find Zuhur, Asr, Maghrib, Isha in the Quran, therefore don't do it. We did not find Rajmi in the Quran, and therefore don't do it. And this is what the hadith is saying. Sayyidina Umar, you were a liar by saying that Sayyidina Umar said this is in the Quran.
Well, he's a liar because Omar did apparently in their hadith say it. And by the way, when it comes to Rajm, God said that if someone is committing adultery, they get lashed 100 times, because it is not a fair judgment for someone who commits adultery to be put to death. Because the only time you can put somebody to death is if they committed, murdered themselves, by the way. So it's not a fair judgment. But regardless, we have a third hadith. And in this third hadith, it's about the prayers. So Shu'aib makes a very clear point, and he started this hadith by reading it in Arabic because, again, Siddiq's angle that Shu'aib has no right to talk about the religion because Shu'aib can't read Arabic, but Shu'aib read Arabic multiple times. But when he's presented with another hadith, and this is what we were trying to show him, where his hadith is completely inconsistent, not with itself, not with the Quran, but in reality, the words itself are so inconsistent that no way that this could be revelation from God, as they say that hadith is a second revelation. Because just listen.
This is not me. It's your hadith. I have to read.
Stop lecturing. Go ahead. This one saying that Muhammad is the best. Where is it in the hadith? Go ahead and read it.
I went back to Allah and requested for reduction, and he reduced it to half. Ladies and gentlemen, for 50, when you reduce to half, is what? 25. We are going to see the best mathematicians here.
So the hadith, the narration is that Prophet Muhammad was taken to heaven, right? The narration just starts with craziness from the get-go. And they say that Prophet Muhammad went to heaven, and then Prophet Muhammad started talking to God, and God told him that on his people are 50 prayers per day. And then on his way down, Prophet Muhammad, he met with Moses, and Moses goes to him, no, 50 is too much. Go negotiate with God, go haggle with God to make it less. Right? There's already so much problems with this hadith that's already contradictory to the Quran. The fact that God says that كَمَا بَدَأْنَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ سَنَعِيدَهُ وَعْدًا عَلَيْنَا, that God is going to create the heaven in front of you, right? But apparently now heaven is already created, and now Prophet Muhammad is talking directly to God because Gabriel is no longer there with him, which again, they have no proof that Muhammad talked directly to God, but they just want to make him better than Moses. And now Moses is telling him as well to go haggle with God. So it started with 50 prayers, and then he took it down to half. Now it's 25, and I'll let Shu'aib carry on.
When I passed by Musa again and informed him about it, he said, go back to your Lord, as your followers will not be able to bear it. So I returned to Allah again. I requested for further reduction, and half of it was reduced again. So meaning he has not what? 12.5. So from 25, if half is reduced, it's 12.5, right? I again passed by Musa, and he said to me, return to your Lord, for your followers will not be able to bear it. So I returned to Allah, and he said, these are 5 salats. So from 12.5, automatically, according to this hadith, the God of the hadith made it now 6. It's supposed to be 6.25, right? So now he made it 5. So now listen to what this God of the Hadith will say, not the God of the Quran, God forbid. Listen to what he says. Then he says, these are 5 salats and they are all equal to 50. I've never seen this kind of mathematics before. For my word does not change. And the God of this Hadith again says his words does not change. Subhanallah. After changing 50 to 5.
So I'm sorry, like sometimes it's just, they just don't see the ridiculousness of what is written. So God said 50, he removes half of it, it becomes 25. He removes half of it, apparently now it's not 12.5, and then he removes half of it again. It's supposed to be 6.25, but all of a sudden it's 5. So just the mathematics doesn't, and then 50 equals 5, and then God's word doesn't change, but it changed like 3 times in that like one paragraph, right? But then when they're confronted with this information again, this is when he's going to show his ignorance. So what does Siddiq want to talk about? Not that the math is not checking out, but we don't understand. He focuses on a word. فَوَضَعَ شَطْرَهَا. That's what it says in Arabic. فَوَضَعَ شَطْرَهَا. So what does shatraha mean, Siddiq?
This is what I'm talking about. But this is the hadith. فَوَضَعَ شَطْرَهَا. And part of it was removed, was taken out, was placed aside. So what else do you want me to read? This is what the point I'm making. He said I should read, and I'll spend, God knows how.
Wada shatraha is listed multiple times here. Like, I know if you guys don't read Arabic, I can see it on the screen 1, 2, 3 times, right? It's not that he used it once, he used it 3 times. For wada shatraha.
How many minutes to read?
Now,
so now what do you want again?
No, Siddiq, wait.
So he's saying shatr means part, it doesn't mean half. But the English translation that was translated by a Sunni is incorrect, because Siddiq knows and nobody else knows the truth except him. That Sunni who studied Islam a lot longer than he has is completely wrong, right? Muhsin Khan, which is like someone who's distinguished in the Sunni sect, he's wrong, but Siddiq is right.
Mm-hmm.
You are saying part, right? Tell me, give us one source of your scholars where they translated this as part.
So when you say scholars,
give me evidence from one of your scholars that say that shatr means part.
Scholars, who do you mean by scholars?
Wait, the shatr, you said it can mean half, right? That's what you said.
I said it can mean half, it can mean part. So why did you choose half?
Okay, according to you, because we are not following your teachings. You are following your scholars' teachings, right?
Who is my teaching? Who is my scholar? Who do you know my scholar?
Oh, you don't have your scholars?
So no, there's no need to show proof. There's no need to show evidence. He passed off this hadith that it's correct, that wada'a shatraha means he took part of it out, right? But then this individual cannot produce any proof that shatr means part, right? And then earlier, on a different conversation, when he wants to talk down to Shu'aibah, saying that he doesn't know Arabic because the word dallan doesn't mean astray when it means astray, but he wants to this is what kind of kicked off the debate anyway, because he wanted to attack Shu'aibah, saying that he doesn't know how to read Arabic or he doesn't understand Arabic, when Shu'aibah clearly reads and understands Arabic. But this man calls for a book as a proof of evidence, not the Quran. He calls upon another book.
What we call Lisanul Arab. Because he doesn't know, he cannot, if I open this book for him, he cannot read.
Okay, so yeah, Shu'aibah can read Arabic, but I want to see if he can read what Lisan al-Arab says about shatr, right? So this is Lisan al-Arab right here, which is, you can see it right there, Lisan al-Arab, right? And on this page right here where it says shatr, right? Al-shatru nusfu shay, the half of something. وَجَمْعُ أَشْطَارٌ وَشُطُور. Or like the plural of shatr is ashtarun wa shutur. But nowhere here, if you keep going, it's talking about a part. It's always about being halved, dissected in half. But don't take just Lisan al-Arab. We can go with al-Munjid. Here, shatr is shatru shay. The shatr of something is we made it into 2. Bayt al-Shar, so wa bayt al-Shari, which is in poetry, hadhafa nusfuhu, which he removed half. وَالنَّاقَةِ أو الشاة, which now back to the animal, حلب شطرا من أخلافها وترك شطرا. So he milked half of its, the half of what is available from its teats, and then he left the other one, right? كانت شطورة, so it's got nothing. شيء قسمه نصفين. Something has been cut in half, right? So this is the dictionaries, and all the dictionaries, if you look into them, even I'll show you in English, shatrahu, right? It's always here. divide it into two equal parts, bisect, cut through, to cut off, sever, right? To be squint-eyed, but to draw, to have at the beginning, sorry. And it's always divided into two equal parts, to bisect through, to share by halves. Okay, if the dictionary is not good enough, now he is what he calls himself a Salafiyya, right? So Salafiyya movement, they have their like imams and sheikhs, and the three like most prolific contemporary scholars that they use is Albani, Ibn Uthaymin, and then Bin Baz, right? So we can go see what his favorite scholar. This guy is like not even a black belt. This guy's a master compared to him, right? So Bin Baz, in his website, which is authored by like the Saudi government, and it says like, you know, Imam Bin Baz. So it is all about Bin Baz. It's binbaz.org, right? This is literally about this hadith. معنى فوضع شطرها في حديث الإسراء. So what does وضع شطرها mean in حديث الإسراء, right? And the person quick, like point blank, asks him, the su'al is المراد بالشطر هو النصف, right? And the sheikh says yes. And here I'll let Bing translate it, Microsoft translate it, so we could see it together. So it says, what is the meaning by the half is half? Yes. So what is the meaning of shatr is half, right? So this is literally what the sheikh is saying. His sheikh is saying that it is half, right? But what does Siddiq want to say about what's it mean?
You are making things up.
But you just lied. You just said part. It's not part. It's half.
It's half. You are saying it's half. Shatr means also means.
Then prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Your hadith book says half.
Which hadith?
Guys, Bin Baz, his favorite teacher, his top tier, like S tier teacher, says it means half. But who knows better? Siddiq knows better. He is the scholar.
Now you have to.
And let's go throw everything down the bus because he's right and Shu'aib is wrong no matter what.
So let me.
Oh, so now Musin Khan is useless, right?
I don't even know him. I don't know the one you're talking. I don't know him.
Oh, your own scholars.
I'm not a Google student.
Okay, so which of your scholars, Siddiq, which of your scholars have explained this hadith for you?
I don't even have translations of books. See. You don't give them books, but let me see my books. They're in Arabic. I don't have translations of books.
Did you guys see his library and his books? Because this pious man, this man who is so righteous, and he's the one who's representing the movement of Sunnism, which is to talk about God, right? When earlier in the debate, at the beginning of the debate, and again, him showing his library was when he was mad and God wanted to reveal how much of a liar he is. At the beginning of the debate, he was asked a very simple question.
I thought you have your hadith books with you. You couldn't access it.
No, you see, today I made something to give a signal. You see, I didn't sit by the library. That's a signal for those who understand.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, it's for the signal so that his transmission for the debate is clear. So he didn't sit by the library, and his books are not next to him because did not sit next to the library. For those who understand,
you don't give them books, but let me see my books. They're in Arabic. I don't have. And
there's his books in Arabic right next to him, but he couldn't pick out a book. He couldn't bring the book out forth and say to everybody, like, you see, shatr in Arabic means part, as per Bin Baz, as been any of these scholars that they love, as per Bin Albani or Ibn Kathir, or like any shred of evidence to show that it's part of something in Arabic. Shatr means part. Nope. But anyone you ask about this hadith, they'll all tell you half. 50 went to 25, 25 went to 12.5, 12.5 went to 6.25, and that equals 5. Because this is what they are. They just make things up on the spot to defend this garbage book. This book that does not add to anybody's value in any shape, way, form. This book, which is the Quran, is timeless. Their book is just nonsense. It's written by people who are backwards. People who are many centuries behind us, that were lying to people, and the people were so naive and gullible, they would believe these lies because they do not understand, they did not reason. They left something that is so good, which is the Quran, and they ate garbage, which is the hadith. So this is what they become. They become liars. The library is not next to him because he wants a signal, but the library is next to him. Shatr doesn't mean part because he said so. And Shatr doesn't mean half because he said so. And Omar never said about a verse about rajm, and adult breastfeeding is not a thing because he just makes it up as he goes. You know why? Because I told you in the beginning, they're like Christians. They love the hadith and they say the hadith is important, but they never read it. And I challenge any one of you that say the hadith is important. Go read Al-Bukhari as much as you can. By the time you reach the end, the cover, you're going to have so much questions, you will leave your religion.